begin, can each of you talk to us about like the annual schedule to put out a magazine and stuff?
Great. So in the fall, we advertise our organization. You can take a statement for credit, but a lot of us do it without credit because it's just really, really fun. And in the fall, we try to promote ourselves as best as possible to gain campus awareness. And what we started off doing is deciding on a theme. Sometimes we don't even come up with a theme, and the theme comes out at the end of the year as just based off the submissions we get. But basically what we do in the fall is a lot of event planning, promotional planning. We also decide when we hold our submission deadline window, and we set our launch date in the fall. So we start school in September, and in September we knew that we wanted to launch our magazine in May, and we just worked towards that. And it gets trickier as the year goes on, as I'm sure Muse also knows. So we do a lot of mostly planning in the fall, and then in the winter it's the same thing. We're always doing some kind of planning. We're having a lot of events, collaborating with other clubs, doing something similar to what we're doing right now. We're also taking in a lot of submissions, and that gets super, super hectic because we have to organize the submissions, get everyone to read them. So just get eyeballs to look at the works that come in, so we can decide what kind of magazine we want. In addition to organizing still campus awareness, still events, fundraisers, and all that. And in the springs, it's mostly dedicated towards the launch. We call it a Statement Magazine launch party. The magazine gets released, but we call it a launch. And a lot of planning goes into that too. So we set our date up in the fall, and we work towards that. But then when spring comes around, we start organizing the actual event itself. What kind of food we want, the program, who's designing the flyers. We design the magazine too. After we get the submissions in the winter, we put together the magazine late winter, early spring, and the graphics stuff. And
as far as the design goes, last year we were fortunate enough to have a graphics designer named Sing La. For the past 2 years before that, we had an extraordinary young woman named Yihang Yu. You might be seeing her works around LA pretty soon. Actually, she was featured in a couple of galleries.
yeah.
What my esteemed colleague here failed to mention also is that he single-handedly handled all the submissions and the organization of it, and he's too modest to mention otherwise, but he really did. Single-handedly organized it for the entire editing board, for us to read through and see which ones would make it into the magazine. And this year, incredibly, was 3 times as much as the previous year. And there's something incredible behind the story of that too, and it's kind of strange too, is we had more submissions this year because of mainly through word of mouth.
Yeah.
Compared to the previous year where we tried using social media, and for some reason that didn't pan out as well as word of mouth did. So it was a very curious turn this year, and we were extremely fortunate and blessed to have such talent come to our doorstep, and it was such a shame to only pick just a handful that you would see in the magazine.
We set up, we advertise in poetry writers calling for submissions in the fall, and by the end of February to early March is when we start deciding who we're gonna publish and what's gonna be in our journal. Before spring, prior editors, we set up events, open mics to showcase our magazine and to also showcase writers. But during the spring, we're just full force into creating this journal so that we can publish it by May. And we also choose the way how the journal looks, how we're gonna set it up, and
That sounds right. We're on a slightly more compressed schedule because there is no class in the fall. So the calls for submissions that go out, all of that is independent of the course. It's volunteer labor, it's faculty investment, and so the ads and posts and writers, or the word of mouth, et cetera, that's kind of the momentum or the actual physical things that are happening in the off season, and the class that is only a once a year course in that spring semester then works on the production, collaborates with the designers, fundraises actually during that intense period of March, which staff members here can attest to. We do have some funding from ASRCC, Associated Students. It's fairly minimal. We typicly raise more money during March than we have been granted by the Associated Students. So the students are very motivated on staff. And then it's all about the launch, basically in April, May. So it sounds like for you guys the same thing. So trying to figure out how to promote, with what kind of events, different kinds of crowds, how to sell. Pray to God that the printing comes back so that we have it for events, and all those kind of things. So yeah, that's pretty much the calendar for us. And it's different now. We have gone through quite a bit of change. So just so you understand, we do not have the history. We did not start in 1950. 50. We started in 1985 as a club. We were at a 2-year lower division undergraduate college, community college, and we started as a club, and then eventually became a class for the mid-90s at some point. But it used to be twice a year. It used to be twice a year offered as a course, 2 issues. And so it kind of went, under the grade, and then it's come back, and sometimes, this stuff does. So we're really trying to bring it back and help it stay alive. Keep a standard momentum, rather than over aiming and then burning out.
As far as funding goes, what percentage is school funded, or some part of school funded, and what part do you have to raise on your own, if at all?
This year was frustrating. Last year, Statement was fortunate enough. Our provost was able to secure 5,000. 5,000, I believe it was. Yeah, for printing costs, and the printing, you'd be surprised at how much hoops you have to travel through. This year, we were incredibly fortunate to have received 0. 0. Luckily, however, the English department chipped in out of their own pockets. They paid for quite a bit. 3,500, I believe. We did fundraising. Our Valentine's Day poetry and drums was one of among the more successful ones. And others were just generous contributors and donations from people who wanted to see a student-generated literary magazine come to life. People who wanted to keep it afloat. So that's how we managed. And a lot of negotiating with the printer. There was a lot of negotiating with the printer.
So do you remember the numbers, or do you?
When we relaunched Muse last year, we started off with $700.
We had $800 last year.
And that was strictly from what the school granted us. So when as the class got together, we doubled it in a process of about, I think, 3 weeks. We went out soliciting just letting people know what we're trying to do, and a lot of people were very encouraging, and especially in Riverside and the smaller businesses. And then this year we started off with 1,200.
Well, in our bank,
I'm
bank
sorry.
we had saved because of the fundraising. We had about $1,500, but from the school we got $700. Everyone got a cut, so we got reduced, of course. But this book costs us under $2 per issue to print with Lightning Source, which is out of state, so we have to add that to our timeline, et cetera. But it's print on demand, so the sustainability, the lack of waste, the pay as we can afford it makes a huge difference. And if we charge $10 a copy or $5 a copy for students, even accounting for giving out contributors copies, trades, things like that, which I'm sure you guys do, it might be something to think about, because our on-campus printer was about 5 times more expensive, which is kind of interesting to think about it. They weren't exactly giving it away for charity, in the past. So that was a huge thing. We talked about, lightning sources is a huge improvement for us.
And we have questions for them about some technical stuff, how each school does things. Yeah.
For a statement, do you print like in your school services, or is it, do you go to like a local shop?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think this year we did go to a local shop. What we do, it sounds like our situation is kind of similar. It's like our on-campus printer, they're expensive and the quality isn't as good.
Ours are not set up for perfect binding, which is part of the issue. So they outsource that, so that adds a huge cost. And if it's 10, 15 years ago, they often they fall apart. It was not great. So anyway, so sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just, this year we went to a local print shop in Pasadena? Typecraft.
Nicely.
So if you're interested in finding a great shop to print something, Typecraft, everybody. But yeah, in the past, Statement has gone through their on-campus printer, but not for the past couple of years. What about, and this year you guys went to some,
For the past 2 years, no. Because when I did that cost, it was like, what's the cost per issue to do it here? I was kind of just horrified. And they were printing half the size in terms of content. And it was just like, well, this is an easy one. So I did my estimates when I came in, and it was just like, half the size of that. Half the content, in terms of content, you know what I'm saying? So like 60 pages of content for $5,000,
What's
that's
the
kind of
old
crazy.
issue that is half that size?
Yeah, ours is pretty thin this year too. But we have some really good stuff. And just 2 years ago we had a book that was just a little less than this, I would say. And
This looks great. How much are you paying per copy?
We're just getting them and we just give them out to students who want them. We've sort of been playing around with selling them on campus, but we're not quite there yet.
Well, how much does it cost you to print these? Like how many copies, and then how much does it cost you? If you said $2,000 for how many copies?
Okay, I don't have the numbers with me, but if I recall correctly, we were looking at about the neighborhood of 45,000 for 700 copies, I believe it was.
45,000 copies or dollars?
No, 45,000 copies. Excuse me. 700 copies for about 4,500.
Got it. Okay.
Somewhere around that area. Don't have the exact numbers.
I don't know better than you.
No.
So.
Yeah. The money is the thing.
Yeah, nice. Well, maybe not nice, but you know what I mean. It's a staple for us to deal with this financial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever considered like crowdsource funding, like a Kickstarter campaign or anything like that?
Is that even allowed for school?
I think Maribel could speak to that. I don't remember the story, but it's just that, that's the problem.
Oh, it's because, especially for our school, it's hard to get money into our school account. So we don't technically have like a set account for Muse there.
Well, we do, but
it's not where we can have money sent in, right? We have to personally send in the money.
Yeah.
And with like a crowdsourcing thing, we would have no place for the money to go.
or it'd be like Maribel will be getting the income,
And then
so it's just a weird.
and they can't trust that, so we really couldn't use that way to raise money for our town.
But we do have one thing real quickly. One thing I'm working on is getting a Muse pocket or a bank or something in the Riverside Community College District Foundation, which then would enable us to raise money from the NEA, the NEH. That's just a whole other place, but it would be kind of a protected area then where some of that stuff could happen and it wouldn't just be us out kind of shaking the tree. But I don't even know then if we could do that type of kind of, crowdsourcing. It's tricky.
That'd be way too much paperwork.
Right, yes. There are probably 25 forms and we just they don't have them yet. You know? Yeah. How about you guys?
We haven't considered it yet, but I think it might be worthwhile. It's kind of confusing. I think Jonathan might be able to speak better about this, but we have like 3 sources at school, each with their own like worst complications to get money. But we were just talking about that today. So
Yeah, it actually, thank you for bringing it to our attention, because it actually may be an option now. After jumping through about 38.5 hoops, we have been able to secure an account of our own with the Federal Credit Union on campus. So we technically have an account of our own. So paperwork aside, we may be able to look at that now. So thank you for that. Very much. I need to shake your hand later.
Any other questions?
I wanted
I was actually,
yeah.
well, the curious thing was, Otis, our school brought in, but they have a publishing thing. They brought in their books, and we were like, how much are these books? And they were like, well, technically we can't sell them, because we're not supposed to make money from them. So I could give you the book, and then you could donate money to the school.
Yeah.
And I was like, is that what you guys have to do too, or?
That sounds extraordinarily familiar.
Okay, so our history was similar, and the sticking point is this issue of if the school is funding it, basically if the student body is paying for it, then it's an included cost or not. Problem is you can't pay for a book for every person in the school. I mean, we're a 30,000 student district. So I actually asked the comptroller. I was having lots of meetings, as you know. The comptroller last year, who was setting our account, setting our account up with this particular printer, who only takes a credit card. That was a whole rigmarole, you can, I'm sure, imagine. But we got it taken care of, we got it set up. And I asked, can we sell these? And he said, if you were making cupcakes, would you sell cupcakes? So that is my quote. Like, no one has pushed us on it. And as students, we've had this conversation many times. Should we sell it? Should we offer a student rate or not? And until they tell us not to do it, it's not a fee. Our students can enter our contests for no cost. They get a book anyway. So we're trying to build in rewards for the students. That would be kind of my suggestion on the splitting of the hair. If they're not coming after you, is there a way to get in and have these conversations with the person in control of the money who's like, this doesn't make sense that you can't sell the thing you're making? Because part of the problem is it valued by the school if it's not self-sustaining? And if you're giving it away, I had this dream of, copies of Muse on every graduating student's chair when they leave, right? And then you fast forward 2 hours later, and how many are on the ground, and how many have been left, and how many have been defaced, etc. And you've created this art, and it isn't a piece of trash. So there's this whole economy, this question of how to participate in that economy it's difficult, but right now we're kind of, it will probably get raised again, but we are selling them, so. And giving them away, giving a lot away, but.
I think you should put it in swag bags.
Nice. What else is in the swag bag, Chief?
Like-
What else is in that bag?
Like,
That's a
Yeah,
question.
yeah, that's the question.
Advil and
What every student needs, right?
yeah.
I mean, I think we could make the
They'll
argument
take the
that,
whole bag.
yeah, what we give away, what we sell, it ends up, it serves the student body.
I know what you mean about that. You give out some books and magazines, and yeah, some people, really love it, and then somebody puts the drink on it. You know what I mean?
And it's like, oh, what's
Yeah.
that, whatever.
Yeah.
So just the kind of sense of if we value it, so that argument kind of has to be made, and, I'm not sure. Yeah.
Do you guys reach
sell out in just like local bookstores?
One of our editors, Dean, she actually is our person. She was our spokesperson for this bookseller, Cellar Door, sorry. And Dean asked permission, would ask her if she'd be interested in selling our book. But it would, for us, it has to be us asking people to hold our books in order to see if they'd be willing enough to sell. We don't have a set, like,
Wait a minute. Again, the evil thinking. One of the things that we did was make sure we have an ISBN.
Yeah. Right.
So, back to the comptroller meetings and the working with the comptroller before he retires. The big battle is going to be, can we get this on Amazon? Because this is right now, any distributor, she wants out of the grace of her heart to hold it in the, she said she's not even gonna charge us, right? There's no split. She said she'll just sell it, and then we'll get the proceeds on consignment, 100%. But as far as a Barnes and Noble or whatever, you know how that goes, right?
Oh, yeah.
But as far as being able to order print on demand, any issue with that ISBN, we wanted to cover it, so then why not? Why can't we do that? And then, sure, they're gonna take their cut, but why shouldn't that come back to the school and to this creative enterprise? Why not?
Right.
So it's the,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're pretty much in the same boat. We don't sell them currently. We used to in the past. For example, $2 a copy. Sometimes they were $5. They went up
where did
to.
you guys sell them?
We would sell them, I believe, through the campus, but this was before I went to Cal State LA.
On the, at the store
Yeah,
or
so
wherever?
at the store, yeah. But I mean, we have even talked to our dean, and he has been looking at being able to put ISBNs and looking at options of selling it through Amazon and maybe even trouble selling it through Barnes and Nobles.
Right,
All
right,
that
right.
and all the titles.
Right.
That's definitely something that's on the table for right now. But part of the almost once a month is whose work is this? Does it belong to the writers? Does it belong to the college? If we get paid for it, do we pay the writers? And it becomes incredibly and horrifically muddled, especially in recent years when we start looking more and more at the technicalities and complications behind things like intellectual property, and especially now that we're dealing with, for example, online media and all that. And it's something that, unfortunately, we would like to focus more on creativity and the artistic side of it, but the boring and tedious bureaucracy of it all creeps up on us and strangles us more often than not, and we're pretty much in the same boat.
I mean, some of that's kind of exciting though, in a way, like where the rubber meets the road, the dollar, the book, the artist, all this stuff is real stuff. So when you're out in that market as a writer, it's what you're really dealing with. When we raised our money last year, part of what went into that bank was we wanted to do a national prize, and Maribel can talk a little bit about maybe our process for that. And then we also wanted to award money to RCC students only, like reserve some money for them. Again, trying to keep the pot, circulating so it's benefiting students, but not in isolation, because that goes back to the question of value. If anything I send you is just going to get in, why should I read this? Which is an interesting kind of problem. So do you want to talk about how we did the contest, or?
When we submissions.
Sure, and just how that worked.
Well, when we received everything and we saw what was for our contest, we blended everything, which was the most important thing, because we didn't want to see either well-known names or even just people from school, in order just so it could be it'd be like a fair contest, because like you said, it's a national contest, so it isn't just strictly for our students. But the ones that were for RCC, we had them afterwards. Did we do that together?
Yes.
We chose our favorites, but then we had an outside source, each one, to pick our winners. So that way people couldn't say that, they're picking favorites or anything.
Or like, you're on the staff, you win.
Yeah.
We were worried about that. Yeah.
Yeah, we do the same. We make sure that none of the artists or authors' names are introduced. our submissions panels included everybody from not just humanities, but we had some people who was in business and finance on it, somebody from the sciences and all that. It's important for us to be able to capture the voices of the entire campus, and we believe that our submission staff should do the same. You know, we wanted to emphasize just, you know, because it takes courage. There's very much the facet of to step up and to be courageous enough to put your work in for others to read, to experience, to live. And we wanted to respect that as much as we could. But as you said, once we put things like value and economy to it, we do the best we can. All of us. Over you as you as a statement, we just do the best we can.
I have like a couple of more questions. One is, I mean, I don't think it applies as much to you guys because you're more like you starting it. But if for a school magazine that's that old, 1950, does the aesthetic change every time there's a turnover of students, or do you have to carry on something that's been happening?
Absolutely, the aesthetic changes constantly. I feel even like with the staff every quarter. But that's one of our that brings up a good point, because one of our new projects that we want to do this summer is we want to actually I did want to ask you guys when I get a chance about your online presence, if you guys have one. I'm sure you do. But for our website that we're also sort of rebranding, reestablishing, and that sort of thing, we're trying to come up with like a best of the best in the past issues. We're trying to sort of compile pieces from the past and sort of get them on one tab on like a website that sort of shows the progression throughout the years. Because you can see like each magazine, even from last year, it like changed dramatically. Like last year we had 3 separate magazines bound with a really fancy piece of paper that was like, I'm not going to explain it because it had Velcro. I feel like, I probably won't do it justice. And this year, it's a little thinner, but we also have like a fold-out set.
Yeah, it's a broadside.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So every year it changes, and even our logo this year changed from last year. So what we're trying to do is preserve that history and preserve the writing that's been in Statement Magazine. So we're working on, Jonathan and I are working on a website with our other co-editor who couldn't be here tonight, and we're trying to get each magazine in the past digitized, so that you can look at it on the website. But also, like a side project is we're also trying to gather the best writing that's been published throughout the years and show what kind of art that piece of writing came from, or what the artistic design in the magazine from like the best of the best piece of writing that we pulled from. So I mean it changes, but we also try to preserve it.
Can I just ask a quick question, piggybacking on that, which is that, Wanda Coleman, Bukowski, were they solicited? Do you have any idea about what the interest? Maybe Mike knows about that. Were they solicited? Were they just supporting the magazine? Were they students at the time? Like, how did Coleman, Bukowski, when they were published inside the magazine, what was the story?
Some of the time they were actually asked by our advisor.
Okay.
And like Session Foster 1 year was one of the editors.
Got it. Okay.
He was a grad student at Cal State LA.
Okay. Got it.
But Carolyn C., during her undergraduate, before she was a famous novelist, she was actually on the editorial staff of Statement back in the late 1950s.
Okay.
I mean, which leads to my last question, which is, recently, I went to one of these events, my English high school teacher showed up. She found me on Facebook. And you shut up.
Just
And what happened was, I had quit the football team in high school and then joined the school magazine, school literary magazine.
Good choice.
Hi, Chihuahua.
Yeah, but that was like my first experience editing.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize I would play a role in my life, right? So like, how many of you guys, is this something you're just doing while you're at school? Or is this something that you're doing because when you leave you want to become publishers? Not writers, but publishers.
Cool question. Is everyone listening? When I joined this class, I joined it because I want to be a publisher, and I want to be an editor, and I wanted the experience. And it was definitely a lot more than I thought it was. Like, because in my head when I was younger, especially, when I thought of an editor, it was somebody that got to read all day and correct or like make opinions or, you know. And to me that was great, but I didn't have the experience behind it really. And so when I took this class, I learned how not right I was, I guess. But I started off because I want to get into like the publishing world. I want to be an editor and create my own magazine.
Blood, sweat, and tears. Why else do we do what we do? But I started Statement because, first of all, one of my very good friends, Emily Sonia, said that I should come check this out, and I had heard about it in my undergraduate, but I didn't have the time to, and I figured, well, I might as well put it under my belt, and I found a family. As cliche and as that romantic, I did find a family, and I started with just Jamie at the time, one of our co-editors, Jamie Heiss. She was spearheading a lot of different projects, and I had known her from a previous undergraduate class. I asked her, "Is there something I can take off of your hands?" And she said, "Yeah, could you help design this flyer for me?" And then that basic writing, editing, helping with the publishing, negotiating with administration. Now I'm dealing with treasurer position. And there's even a young man who joined last quarter. Was it Richard? Was it Richard? Richard and Ryan. Was it Richard who said that? Oh, Ryan. Okay. Ryan had said at the end of it, he had joined the class just for the purpose of filling it up with units. And at the end of it all, at the end of the launch party, he went up to Jamie and he said, "I regret having joined at my last quarter. I wish I had joined earlier." Statement Magazine is much more than just a class or it's just an extracurricular. It's almost a life's blood of the campus. It really, really is. We live it, we breathe it, and it's such a rewarding experience. Mike would tell us, you put in, you get what you put in, and truer words have never been spoken.
Sorry to disappoint you, Juan, but I'm sticking with Statement because I'm a writer and I want to be a better writer.
Just don't disappoint Tomas.
But through my involvement with Statement, I've gotten to do a really cool couple of things. Not to badmouth the film department at Cal State LA, but I've gotten to do some really great film opportunities because I'm involved with Statement Magazine. Opportunities that some of my classes, I'm a film major, so some of my classes haven't given me, ideal projects, but I've gotten to do, my camera's there right now because, I get to film stuff and edit stuff up. And in addition, I love to write. So, being a part of a literary journal that celebrates writers at Cal State LA, as well as artists, visual artists, painters, sketch artists, photographers. I just thought it was like one of the most perfect fits. It was a perfect fit. And Jonathan mentioned that this year I did do a lot of the organization with the submissions, and that was crazy. But through that process, I discovered that, you know, I would enjoy being a publisher or working with a publishing house, or I do enjoy being an editor of a work of a journal like this. But it's mainly writing.
May I respond?
Yeah.
Because thinking about being a writer already and why I would want to do this, because the idea of participating in this is time consuming, it's extra work. If you're a faculty member, for example, a lot of writers are going to become faculty members full-time or part-time or whatever. And what I realized as a writer was that we need creative spaces. You need places. You need people to help mentor you. You need conversation. It isn't just that I'm writing something and that I am there and sending my things out and ta-da, and that's great, but that also this type of energy has to exist in order for my writing to matter, in order for it to connect, in order for there to be a place. And so speaking a little bit farther down the line, it is for me a matter of kind of social energy, social justice even, that you have to participate in this in creating opportunities for other people to do the thing you say you want to do. So that's, I think it's really important.
Great. Thank you. And this is great. Like I was really looking forward to this night because like college is the part where I skipped the whole writing publishing. I don't know what the fuck I was doing in college.
And you still did well for yourself.
What the hell was I doing in college? Football.
Yeah, bring it football.
That's right. You and OJ.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on. Let's give them a hand. My hope is that you guys will mingle, like stay in touch, so after school is done, you go out and you go into the publishing world or writing world, you'll help each other, because trust me, when you get out there, the more people you know who's like-minded, it will help you with many, many things. Thank you for being night 39 of DT Lab. For those who came in late, we're doing 90 consecutive events in 90 consecutive nights in this space, all sort of focused on arts and writers. Yes, yes.
I just want to thank you guys for having a fresh perspective on publishing, and it was super inspiring.
Good. Yeah.
Super inspiring.
Thank you for having us.